Acting Director for Citizenship and Immigration Services Ken Cuccinelli says the public charge rule will save American taxpayers money in the short and the long term. He sat down with One America's Emerald Robinson. This is part 2 of this exclusive interview.
And so I think the real question for a lot of the Americans out there listening who are concerned is, bottom line, how many dollars does this save American taxpayers?
Well, in doing this rule, the costs that we're required to calculate are the cost to the government of implementing the rule, which is about $35 million a year or so. But the savings to taxpayers are out into the future and aren't calculated in the rule, but they're in the billions in terms of just the massive welfare costs that will be saved going forward in the future by not having immigrants here who will go on to welfare in the future, but it's all in the future, so it's hard to calculate.
So you don't really have an estimate.
We don't have an estimate.
You said about 400,000 in the first year. This will probably apply to as far as immigrants.
Yeah, we're switched from dollars to people. It'll apply at USCIS, my agency, to about 400,000 applicants for green cards each year. And that's the point in our process where they'll be reviewed to see if they can be self-sufficient, if they can stand on their own 2 feet, consistent with the American tradition and law.
I want to talk a little more about the implementation part of it. Like you said, they go through a review. Yeah. There has been some complaints from some in the administration that once you finally get through the red tape, you get the rule published, right, it's still a problem and a delay in the actual implementation on the ground. How fast are you going to get this implemented?
Well, this becomes effective October 15th, legally effective. And what that means is for applications filed on October 15th and after, these rules will apply. Anybody in the pipeline today, as you and I are talking, is going to be governed by the current rules, which are very thin, narrow, maybe 5 or 10 pages worth.
But you don't see it as you don't expect resistance within employees of DHS?
Our people are expected to enforce the law as it exists, and our job is to give them the guidance and training to go ahead and do that. They haven't had the tools to implement the law that's been on the books for a while. Interestingly, at the end of the Clinton administration, they issued some basic guidance and said, a rule is coming. Well, they never published that rule, so we did that this week.
Well, there's a lot of rules supposedly coming. You've hinted at more to come, and I want to ask you specifically about those. Are we going to see something about birthright citizenship to follow up on this public charge?
So we don't talk about items that are in the pipeline. One of the awkward things I send back to Congress, they ask me about something or the other, and I'll say, I'm sorry, I can't talk about it because we have public comments we take and so forth. We have to respect the legal requirements we've got. There is more to come. This president has insisted that we push ahead within the boundaries of the law as it exists today, but I'm not prepared here today to walk through what each of those are.
So not even the relieving USCIS of having to authorize work visas within 30 days to asylees? Is that, we've heard that sitting somewhere waiting for implementation. Are we going to see that soon?
If I said anything about that, then my last answer wouldn't have been accurate. So I have to stick with it.
Okay.
We'll talk to you with them as they cross the finish line, because really until they do cross the finish line, nothing is a done deal. They can be pulled by the president, by the secretary. This is done under the secretary's authority typically before we reach that point on any particular task we're undertaking.
And now that you're in this and you're really trying to push these things through, what would you personally like to see going forward?
Well, frankly, the most important thing I'd like to see is a court system that respects the separation of powers. And we don't have that right now. We have a relatively small number of very activist district court judges who are in violation of the law.
Well, Acting Director Ken Cuccinelli, not an easy job you have and not an easy time, but thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.